You're listening to the Match Mary Mate Show, where we aim to be the #1 relationship education podcast for Black women and couples in the country as I teach you how to get your love lives together. Here I guide you on your dating and relationship journey, empower you to honor yourself and own your truth, teach you how to navigate and negotiate your needs and desires with men. I'm your host, your girl, Joyce Robinson Myers, and welcome to another episode, love bugs. Happy spring 2024, and welcome to season 4, titled Springing into Womanhood. I have 7 topics selected for you, intended to teach you about various stages in womanhood and ways of approaching singleness, relationships, and marriage. We're in season 4, which means we're focusing on the 4th energy center of the body, which is our hearts. Located in the center of the chest, this energy represents love for self and others, compassion and empathy, forgiveness and acceptance, transformation and change, grief and peace, and last, awareness and insights, all of which we'll cover in some way or another this season. You're listening to episode 22, Womanhood Before Wifehood. Let's begin with the power of affirmation. We start every episode with an affirmation as a way to center self, listen to the body, and honor our spirit. Ask yourself, how are you today? What moods, feelings, or emotions come up? Use that energy to speak life, wholeness, and healing over yourself using the power of your own voice. Speak it into existence with an I or I love. I love myself. I love new experiences. I love my unique womanhood experience. Today is all about womanhood. Yes, wifehood and motherhood are extensions of womanhood, but I want to zoom in on who you are before holding those other roles and titles. If you've been a wife before and currently back on the dating market, or currently a wife or mom, and you want to restore or establish your sense of womanhood, this show is for you. If you're in the season of getting back to self, this will also be a good show for you too. And last, if you have a daughter, especially if she's about 17 to 24 years young, you can listen for her, or you all can listen in together, because I'll give some context about why that age range is important in our female development. Last, if you want to book a one-on-one call with me and you're looking for a discounted option, I have something that may work for you. If you're willing for parts of your session to appear as an anonymous secret story on this podcast, you can book your call under awareness plus secret story for an over $100 discount. See the link in the show notes for more details. Now, you all know I'm earning my PhD studying the science of love and social connection to place myself in the best position to support my community. Studies show, and I believe, that with proper relationship education, we can produce smarter, safer, and happier romantic decisions that improves the quality of our lives as we match, marry, and mate. Because why, y'all? Black love matters, and we're in much need of some Black family restoration. Enjoy the show. today I want to introduce you to this catchphrase that I use in my coaching practice called you before boo. But it's more formally referred to as womanhood before wifehood. To address the latter more so for this episode, this is my way of saying two things. One, give yourself the experience of maturing into womanhood and learning who you are as a grown woman before becoming occupied with being somebody's wife. For me, it's important that women are not so fixated on being married that they skip over how to be an individual woman, how to be a single woman. You will need your own identity in marriage and also later in motherhood, assuming you want those two things to go together. And it's best to cultivate it and understand it before you sign up to commit to someone in a long-term or forever way. Number two, part of you maturing as a woman and experiencing womanhood is by connecting with other women who are there to help shape and mold you in a variety of ways. But largely, when you serve as a mentor, a peer, and a mentee to different women you need and who also need you. Those three are very, very important. Now, I've written about this on my blog before, so I'll link the initial post in the show notes for you to read up on that concept later. In case you didn't know, all my major degrees are in psychology and education, and my PhD is in educational psychology. So when I put my psychology hat on, I like to view this concept developmentally, where we understand that full adult maturation is not set until about 25, 26 years old. Anytime sooner than that, I'd be reluctant to call the human brain grown. So if you're under this age, you may be a legal adult, but you are not developmentally grown. Now, when I place my educator hat on, we call legal adults who are not yet 25 to 26 years old emerging adults, right? And emerging is already telling. It's you're on the road to become. We certainly can't call you a child, but the fullness of adulthood has not quite settled in. So it communicates that childhood has been experienced, but again, that brain, especially executive functioning, is still maturing and not yet fully functioning. So for both reasons, any female born human under 25 years old is not what I would call a grown woman. During the years between 18 to 24, traditionally known as those emerging adulthood years, female humans are to explore, discover, learn, grow, and develop their sense of self and sense of budding womanhood with interactions taking place with other women, including seasoned women and elders, as well as men. Now, 5 characteristics distinguish emerging adulthood from other stages of life. So, those 5, emerging adulthood is 1, the age of identity explorations, 2, the age of instability, 3, the self focused age, 4, the age of feeling in between, in that transitionary space. Other language that we use in education is called transitional youth, and it's from 14 to 24. It is the most transition that a human will experience in their life, transition and change outside of infancy. But you don't remember infancy. So it's really the most season of transition for you that you'll ever be conscious of in your life. And again, it's that not quite a child, but not quite grown. And then 5, it's the age of possibilities. So if you're part of this age group now and you're listening in, you're in the perfect time of your life to do you, considering you have no other major responsibilities outside of yourself. Being free of marriage or children at this age allows you the kind of focus that you need on self. And you can give yourself all that you need to with the transitions that this season of life demands. But hey, sometimes we're more advanced than the norm, or life events push us to be whether we're ready or not. And I get that. But if you can help it, give yourself this time. These 7 years are the most optimal, the most ideal in most cases to just concentrate on why oh you. Be about you. Because most of my work right now attracts millennials. So for that group, some of us are towards the end of our 20s, all the way up to entering our 40s, and also Gen Z, comprised of teens and early to mid 20s. So because my work usually attracts that group, most have our emerging adulthood years behind us, or we're rearing its end. If you did not give yourself this time during those years of your life, do it now in whatever way you can, in whatever way you can manage to fit it into your life. As we age as women, we should always make space for our own expressions of womanhood, just as it relates to who you are in and of yourself, and not any roles or titles that you hold. But the younger you are, especially removed from wifehood and motherhood, there's usually more space and capacity that you have to do so. Whether you can give all of your time to yourself or you only have pockets and windows of it to dedicate unto yourself, be sure to do that and do it consistently, wholeheartedly, and unapologetically. The more you honor your individuality and womanhood before any man or child comes along, it is easier to not lose yourself in them once they do. I want to list some major milestones of female life to give even more context. When you hear me say first, know that that's the beginning of female life, budding into womanhood. And that as you explore, discover, and give yourself experiences, those first are memorialized. And then the maturing begins to form. So that's the beauty of firsts, right? It starts the journey. It starts the memorialization of who you are, your history, your patterns, your experiences. And then as you navigate your life and you have more of those same experiences that started out as firsts, you begin to mature in them, especially if you are mindful and conscious and you have a community of people who can comfort you, cheer you on, but also correct you and encourage you. As the maturity begins to form, you're going to have knowledge, new knowledge, and skills that you need to acquire over time to be able to fully navigate your experiences. But the more time you invest in something, in giving yourself opportunities, and the more time you spend socializing and then connecting and then later relating and dating and on to other things, you are going to become more knowledgeable and more skilled as a woman with how to navigate what's in your way and what you come from. That's the whole nother podcast episode, but we'll get into it. Now, becoming a wife and becoming a mother are certainly two female milestones, but I am removing them from this list because this episode is about womanhood aside from those two. Let's get into the list. Your first menses, your first kiss, your first sexual experience. Also, an advanced palate, especially between, 14 to 24, your taste buds, the foods that you like, the palate that you develop, it changes, it matures, right? Hopefully, we're not 30, still binging out on chicken fingers and fries. And that is a part of your identity, right? Your tastes, your palate. What is you when it comes to what you eat, your cuisine, your diet, your sense of confidence? Yes, your beauty and your body, including allowing it to change and develop and experience gravity, but also your intelligence and your competence, your education, your skill set in those areas, but also your confidence in your sexual experience and your love life, your attractiveness, your desirability, and then your confidence in your future, your hopefulness, and your sense of possibilities as it relates to yourself and what you can see down the road. Becoming secure and honoring yourself, especially how you situate with your own self-worth and your own self-value. All of these are milestones in female life that are very important. And you dwarf them, you stunt yourself when you are trying to get into grown woman relationships and grown woman situations before these things have started to bud and flower and bloom within you as an individual person. Separation from family of origin, especially establishing who you are as an individual, and even how you orient towards the faith and the values and traditions that were instilled in you while you were growing up and moving from a little girl to a teenager and over into emerging adulthood. Transitioning from your mother's child to your mother's daughter, that is a whole event in female life. And it's very important. Today, I'm in my late 30s, and I don't see myself as my mother's child in most cases because I'm not a child, but I do see myself as her daughter. And that brings on an entire different dynamic, especially in the way that I relate and converse with her. Joining the grown woman conversation or group with older women. I'm right at this cusp. It's happened to me about once or twice, but the closer you get to 40 and then once you're established in it, this will happen more often. But it certainly has started happening to me in my late 30s, where the seasoned women in my life, whether they are grandmothers and aunties, my mother-in-law and some of her sisters or peers, I haven't had it happen a lot again, but it's happened a few times where they're like, you come over here. You're part of this conversation now. Or they want to pour into me, tell me something, or get my opinion on something just to see how, I'm thinking, see what's in my head. But that is certainly a milestone in female life. The blessing of a mother, a grandmother, or an older woman in your life. This has happened to me before. It's happening more the older that I get. But if you have watched Love is Blind season 6, there's a scene where, and in this case, it's a father. But when this happens to you when the seasoned woman in your life does it, it'll be like, okay, I'm growing up. I'm on my grown woman game. But the father is sitting there with his daughter and her fiance. And he says, I want to bless you. And that blessing is coming because this woman is getting ready to experience another milestone in female life. He knows that and he wants to bless her as she transitions from being a single woman to being a married woman. And so lots of times a woman will, let me bless you. Let me pray for you. And not like the regular schmegular prayers, but for real, as a woman, let me put a mantle over you with my experience and seasoning as an older woman. And it's usually coming, right, with some transition in your life. Your first love is another milestone. Knowing and understanding your purpose, gaining a good grasp on your sense of adventure, whether that's, through travel, through hobbies, whatever it may be for you. Your self-care routine, meaning how do you take care of you? Telling a man no, establishing your personal boundaries, knowing how to guard your heart and protect your energy. These are milestones in female life. This should be worthy of a brunch, a celebration, having the girlies come over and give you a night of honor because, girl, you told a man no for the first time in your life. Girl, you guarded your own heart in this situation. You are very clear on your personal boundaries now. Yes, girl, yes. Purchasing a big ticket item, especially if it's property, but any big ticket item, that is a milestone in female life. Becoming a mentor and likewise becoming a mentee, knowing your spiritual gifts and even more so, knowing how to use them, establishing a sense of trust in your own intuition, establishing your own social and professional networks, a transition to menopause, perimenopause, or menopause altogether, other milestones in female life. And you know what? Shout out to the girlies who are currently 39 or who are turning 39 this year. This particular age, it's a series of three. Y'all know how I love my threes. But this particular age is a hallmark, if you will, that represents, okay, a woman has started earning the highest of salaries that she's had in her whole work life. She's in the best health of her life. She has the most life experience. Like all of that combined is happening right about that age. It could be happening a little earlier. It could happen a little later. But 39 is like the peak of that. Okay, you got your coin. You are young enough to be mobile and strong and healthy, but you're also not inexperienced, right? You have life experience. You know how this game works. And you are on top of it. Shout out to the girlies who are 39 or turning 39. Now, I'm going to close the list right there. There's many more milestones in female life, but I wanted to do two things. One, I didn't want to give normal age ranges to that list because they can happen at any point. You can have your first love at 15 or 25. You can have your first sexual experience at 18 or 30. I just listed milestones. And as it comes to you in your life, you can give it meaning for your own maturation and development. But secondly, I didn't want the list to exceed beyond a normal point of the age range for most millennials and possibly some zennials. I know I have some cuspers who listen into the show. Shout out to y'all. I didn't want to do that because, well, most of my target audience is not older than millennials or zennials, but also I'm not. I'm an early millennial. I'm not quite a cusper, but I'm an early millennial. So I can't speak to an experience that I haven't had yet, right? So I'm stopping the list at that perimenopause or menopausal era because I don't know female life outside of that range just yet. Now, there's a beauty and sacredness to understanding yourself through these experiences, especially as you share them with other women. Again, here's where that mentor, mentee, and peer relationships matter. Even inside of motherhood and marriage, you will continue to grow and change, of course. But understanding who you are as a woman, especially those milestones and experiences that I've just listed off beforehand, will add so much more texture and richness to your marriage and motherhood journeys, should you embark upon it. And it'll also help you to not over identify with those roles because you have other ways of being and other ways of feeling important and having meaning and worthwhile relationships and experiences outside of marriage and motherhood. Now, some women are so fixated on becoming a wife and mother that they rob themselves of becoming a full woman. So, this is your PSA or your JSA, as I like to call it, your joy service announcement that marriage and motherhood are wonderful if you want them, but do not let them cost you you. You get to be a grown woman. And I'd argue that there's value in becoming one first and fully. Even if you do not have the perfect progression, you can still give yourself space and time to evolve into womanhood at any time. If you're a single woman listening and you're in the market for marriage, ask yourself, what's one thing or even a few things that I've always wanted to do that I have not done yet? Or something you know you want to enjoy as a single woman before you have to commit to a relationship or a marriage. Last year, I asked a few clients this question, and they all chose trips that they would rather take without having to check in with the man for it. What blessings and experiences can you gift yourself even now? Your life or womanhood journey is not over just because your life does not mirror the most ideal timeline. This is about you owning who you are unto yourself more wholly and growing up more and more within it. So when Maya Angelou says, pretty women wonder where my secret lies, I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. This is not a teenager. It's probably not even a woman in her young or early 20s. And I'm not talking about the self worth that it boasts, because this can be developed early in children, but it speaks to a certain level of experience and confidence within that a younger woman is not likely to have. Love bugs, I'll be right back to close the show with the practical exercise so you can use it to help define what womanhood will be like for you as an individual woman. If you're enjoying the show and would like to keep this podcast in production, consider making a donation. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. After we pass through emerging adulthood, we enter into young adulthood. Now, I fancy cycles of 7, and I prefer to bake in some transition space from one age group to the next. So for me, this is largely happening about 28 to 35 years old, though 33 is a strong turning point in that stage. Just like in the next one, 39 is a strong turning point. When I mentioned it earlier, 33 is a strong turning point in young adulthood. This is usually the time in life where you become grown. We have fully launched into adulthood and we've left our youth behind at this age. Career choices have been made and financial independence has often been reached. And romantic relationships tend to become more of a serious feat. And we start thinking much more long term. Now, these years are spent making efforts to find your place in society. So issues of identity and intimacy peak at this group. If you are socializing and exploring and discovering an emergent adulthood, well, then in young adulthood, Your identity is pretty settled and we see it peak. And now intimacy becomes a very important thing. If you're familiar with Eric Erickson's psychosocial stages, and you can just Google that, this is me putting that psychology hat back on. He'd say that intimacy skills require a sense of identity. I want to say that again. Intimacy skills require a sense of identity. Do you see why it's important? Doesn't matter the exact age, right? We all develop and peak differently. But the timeline, the progression matters. Do you see why it's important to give yourself your own sense of self before you try to establish relationships in a serious or long-term way? Now, you can date and be casual, or even have a relationship that is youthful, young, right? You're not trying to make it be marriage necessarily. You can do that in your late teens and early 20s for sure. But serious relationships that require commitment and real relationship, communication, and intimacy skills, it's going to be difficult without your own sense of self, right? So back to Erickson, he says, intimacy skills require a sense of identity. Otherwise, certain fears and dysfunctions begin to settle in. It could be fear of commitment. It could be hyper independence. I see that in a lot of Black women. Or it could be failure to launch altogether. We see that in a lot of Black men. We see it in a lot of boys leaving out of high school, going into college. And then I would start calling them men, right? Leaving college for those who go and entering into the workforce. Sometimes they don't even finish college, right? Being able to finish is a huge thing in the Black male community. And so like a portion of my own doctoral research is in that hyper independence of these women and the failure to launch of these men. This is very, very important in human development, and it's very important in the Black community specifically. So when I say womanhood before wifehood, I'm really zooming in on the balance in that intimacy and identity relationship. Late 20s through mid 30s is just the ideal time to establish your identity as a unique woman, different from any other woman in the room. But you would have needed your 20s to explore, to navigate, to discover, and all those things to really have a strong sense and consciousness about it as you move into your late 20s and early 30s. Okay? So establishing yourself differently from other women in the room, but also to learn intimacy skills first with other women and then men. Doing that will give you so much more dividends and positive experiences in dating and connecting and relating to men. Now, the younger side of this age range, let's call it 28 to 32, is more the young adult end. And the later half of it, and, even extending just a wee bit beyond it, is what we call the responsible adult stage. So as adults, we've typically learned to accept and live with our responsibilities. Also, our personality develops and traits mature, of course. Now, these things can occur sooner, but my message to you is to make sure to give yourself this time to become, to arrive, to launch as a full adult woman before you rush into extra responsibility that demands more of you. Now, I like to be as practical as possible, so I want to share a quick exercise that you can do to assist you on your womanhood journey, especially if you feel like you aged out of the most traditional timeline, or you're just catching up, and that's fine too. You're going to create your female prototype. Now, this prototype is ever evolving, so you do not need to feel boxed in. She will update and grow with you, but you'll likely have some foundational features that remain rather steady. Also, there are different seasons of womanhood where one expression in this season doesn't make sense in another season. Womanhood is seasonal. If you could not tell from that major list of milestones that I listed for you, let me reiterate it again. Womanhood is seasonal. You're not going to experience all of those milestones at one time. You're not going to be the same woman when those experiences come your way. Now, at Match Mary Mate, we have the FYF woman prototype. FYF stands for feminine yet firm. I speak about her often on this podcast, but she's first mentioned in pop-up episode number 1 if you want to learn more. In the Bible, Ruth, or the woman described in Proverbs 31, are female prototypes. Now, I recited a stanza from Maya Angelou's poem, Phenomenal Woman, earlier, partly because it represents a kind of prototype too. Name your prototype whatever you want. Your prototype should describe who the woman is in character and how she functions or goes about her day. You should also include some clue of expected roles, even if it's just for that specific time. You can also add how people would describe her or praise her. And then if your prototype is representative of more than one season, include that too. You may want to select certain movies or TV shows that have multiple Black women and choose your favorite, or record what resonates with you in each one. Do that as a springboard for drafting your ideas. So, for example, Living Single is popular because the 4 of those women represent a large part of Black female identity and experience. If you find yourself gravitating to one the most, and it's not to say you don't have something in common with the other 3, but if you find yourself saying, yes, I'm a Khadijah, yes, I am a Maxine, then draft out what is it that's resonating, right? Sometimes you're like, I'm a good mix of these 2 or these 3, and sometimes you are a good mix of all 4, but make sure it's a mix and not just a few things in common. Draft that out. It can help be a springboard to you. If I were using Living Single as an example, I see myself in the 4 of them to a degree, right? But I am largely Maxine. So when I think about, who is she, right? She's a woman who. She's a woman who has. She's a woman who does or doesn't. She's a woman who likes. She's a woman who loves. She's a woman who, right? You can insert the verb there however you like and pull those features out. Is that you? Are you a woman who has? Are you a woman who loves? And is it you in true form today? Are you already her? Do you already have? But also, is it you in terms of maybe you don't have it or you haven't become it yet, but it is you in terms of fully developed? That's what you would be. That's, who you would become. So the who doesn't have to be materialized or actualized yet. It just has to be true to you. It has to be authentic, whether you have actualized it or not. And you can also do this with celebrities or even women who you know and whose stories or personalities have been shared with you in your family and even ancestors. I would say especially ancestors, right? I can definitely go, wow, Nana is, Nana was, Nana has or had, and draw connections between my mother's grandmother and myself. Maya Angelou simply names hers Phenomenal Woman. And we can pick up on the seasons too, because when she writes, I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. We know this probably isn't a college student, right? But we also know it's unlikely a 95-year-old woman, too. Not unless the fall down on their knees part is out of respect or honor for her seniority. It really is all in how you see it. So, how experienced is this woman? Can you see yourself like that? Now, I'm going to tell my age here a little bit because when I think of that stanza I just read, I hear Sandra from 227, but I also see Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show. Different kinds of women and their personalities and their different experiences can evoke a similar vibe. But what do you sense and feel? Right? It's all in how they chose to be it. I hear this fire in my eyes and swing in my waist and joy in my feet and being able to have these men fall down. And Claire Huxtable comes to mind, just like Sandra from 227. And we know those are two different women, right? But do you see how the same vibe was evoked? Who do you see? And what kind of woman do you see yourself as? As you reflect on those questions for yourself, I'd also recommend two offerings I have available that may support you even more than this podcast episode. First, I have a femininity identity bundle available that includes 3 classes in a workshop style. And second, I have a nurturing my self-esteem mini course that helps to parse out elements of female life too. Now, this prototype explains your womanhood journey and gives you something to aspire to in your lifetime. One trait of my prototype says she crochets her grandchildren's clothes and tells them stories of her youth. I'm not even done being a mother yet, y'all. So there's no way that I am this woman yet. But I hope to become her because it's my version of that seasoned or that elderly woman, right? And the role of grandmother, should my sons make me one. Even if they never do, I'll still crochet clothes for someone's baby and tell stories of my youth to a younger generation who wants to listen, because it's just the kind of woman that I want to be. Another trait that I have, as borrowed from Proverbs 31, says, her sons are grateful and proud of her mothering. They report well of her teachings and counsel. Now, just recently, my oldest son said to me, Mommy, I've had a really good childhood. Thank you so much. But I'm ready to become an adult now. And shout out to him. This episode is being released on his 18th birthday. So shout out to my baby. Now, listen, that's 1 out of 2. I got one more. Let's not be premature. So the entire time that I've been raising my sons, I've kept that kind of woman or that kind of mother in my mind. I've sought to become her, though I had not completed that phase in my journey yet for my sons to give such a report. But I was still in the process of becoming her. And now that I have that verbal praise, at least from one son, I know I am her, at least to him. Now, listen, the verdict is still out on the baby. Y'all know how I feel about being premature when you're still in the process or in the experience of something. So I need both of them to say that before I will feel fully actualized in this. But I am very, very proud of myself for achieving that status and having that praise report come back to me with my oldest son, because I sought to become that woman and that mother in my raising and rearing of them. To give a non-maternal example, I also have, she makes time to teach inexperienced women and is sensitive to the pleas of men. Okay, I think that's enough context and examples. You can take it from there and start drafting your own prototype. Who is she? How do you plan on becoming her? What parts of her can you focus on before becoming a wife or a mother? And what parts can you develop aside from being a wife or a mother? If you're familiar with your female archetypes, you can lean in on those titles and traits too. Just like with the FYF woman, I've discussed these archetypes at various points on this podcast, but you can refer to pop-up episode number 6 if you want more details. Your archetypes can help your prototype become more situational too. So for example, my top 3 are sage, huntress, and mother. I often say that I'm a sage among women, a huntress among men, and a mother among children. From there, I wrote that I teach women, attract men, and nurture children. And then I began to pull from those to add language to the vision in my head and in me answering the question, who do you want to become? What kind of woman do you want to be? Then I listed what I really care about with those groups. I go hard for the safety of women, the humanity of men, and the innocence of children. I am not the same woman with these 3 groups, but I am still the same type of woman because there's a relationship between safety, humanity, and nurture. From there, I was able to draft my she is statements with much more clarity. All in all, you're asking who you want to be. What kind of woman do you want to be? In what situations, seasons, and with which types of groups will you be her? Commit to being her and evolving into her and manifesting her. And also commit to never losing her, and especially not to roles like wife and mother. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need of my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. This woman sounds more seasoned, right? I can see my grandmother here for sure. What about you? Who's your prototype? All right, now, that's it, and that's all. We end every episode with a thought or heart-provoking question for your journal. Journaling is simply prayers on paper, and the Most High tends to those too. Dear listener, what does womanhood before wifehood mean for you? How can you avoid an unhealthy occupation with marriage? How can you enjoy singleness for all the blessings it has to give? Which parts of your womanhood will you reserve away from a man or child? And what parts are you certain you want to share with the man or child? It's okay to write about the blessings and the burdens. Pour it into your journal today. Release yourself, free yourself, and most of all, be yourself. P.S. No woman is better at being you than you. If you're interested in my research projects, my coaching work, or you want me to speak about either at your next event, you can reach me at hello@matchmarymate.com. I hope you feel empowered and inspired after today's show. I'd love to know you started working on your grown woman prototype if you care to share. If you also want to share some topics you'd like to hear on the show, please use the comments feature or this episode to shoot me an email at podcast@matchmarymate.com. Today, I leave you with this lyric from Shania Twain. Man, I feel like a woman. Thank you for joining me today and tuning into another episode of the Match Mary Mate Show. Until our next time together, love, light, and relationship. Remember, we grow as we go, and I'll be with you in the next episode. Cheers.